Lynn Campbell of the Steve Campbell Group, and I've got to bring you up to date based on the stories that he's told you. So now I get to tell my side of the stories. Number one, I have to tell you that I had a stroke 7 years ago, so I don't walk quite so well. But anyway, that's a hindrance. But the other big thing, when we left Lancaster, is I was following Steve in a car. And so I had to follow that great big bus all the way from Ohio to North Carolina. Of course, the first stop was at the parking lot of the diesel place. And there were U-Haul trucks coming in and out all day long. And Steve kept saying, they can't see in the windows. They can't see in the windows. I put a special stuff on there. But somehow I didn't believe him. So every time a truck came in, I ducked. Till finally he told me a story about a lady who traveled, who said that if you think that you're not going to be surprised by somebody seeing you come out of the shower naked, get over it, because it's going to happen. So that took care of that part of the journey. So then when we left Lancaster too, we no more left town, and it poured down raining. So I could hardly even see him in front of me. That was our first episode. Then at the diesel place, when we had to go in there because the bus broke down, and we were parked on the interstate all night, and then we spent a week at the diesel place. Only redeeming value was Krispy Kreme was just a block away. So that was the good part. So when we left there, I think we spent the night at a Target parking lot, and so we just stayed overnight, and of course it rained there. But also, while in that city with the Target parking lot, Steve was driving and the blue light came on. And the cop was behind us. And he pulled Steve over, and he pulled over, and I pulled over. And we didn't pull over in a parking place. We pulled over on a main street in this town. And he got out, and I just sat there because I thought I better stay in the car. So I stayed in the car, and pretty soon after a while, the cop came out. And Steve drove on, and I drove on, and I thought, well, hopefully he didn't get a ticket. And later found out that the reason he was in there so long is he thought he stopped Steve for DOT driving. He thought it was a truck driver. Well, he's not. He was an RV. And the guy said, well, then, do you mind if I take a tour of your bus? And Steve said, well, don't you think we ought to pull over and park someplace better? And he said, no, I got my light on. We're okay. So we were. And we drove on, but then came the fun part of driving for me, because 2 and 3 and 4 semi-trucks would get between me and Steve. And then I couldn't see him. Couldn't see him for the trucks, and of course I got lost. So the only thing I could think of was to make about 4 right turns and end up at least going the same direction. So from there we went to a KOA in Fredericksburg. And that was finally a very, very good beginning. It was a fantastic place. They had a place for us. They had a pool. They had a pond. They had laundry facilities. They had a big room that had all kinds of things like, candy bars and potato chips and all that good stuff. Very, very friendly people and very, very nice place. But there's one better coming up. So we left there and headed on out again, and we went through the outskirts of Washington so Steve could stop and check on something on the bus again. And then we took off, and he said, well, we got to find a place to stay. So he said, oh, here's one. It's only 8 miles away. He said, it's perfect. So I said, sounds fine to me. So we pull down this tree-lined small road and pull up in front of a huge, huge fence. And we happened to look over, and we push the button, and as we're getting the gate is open for us, we look up and it says, this is a family nudity community. Well, Steve looked at me, and I looked at him, and I thought, this is a new adventure. I said, I'm game if you're game, pull in. So in we went. And my first surprise was the people in the office were sitting there with a shirt on, but that was all they had on. And they gave us all the rules of the facility. And anytime we were in an open area, like the swimming pool area, there were no clothes. No clothes, absolutely nothing except shoes. So we got in our place, and Steve tells this story, and it could be true. He could be lying. It could be true. He said that I had my clothes off and the towel in my arm before he turned off the bus. And I was ready to go out the door to go swimming nude. So he could be right. I'm not saying he's wrong. So he could be right. But I have to say, it was one of the most enjoyable places I have ever stayed. I've never met such friendly people. The fact that you were nude made no difference to the people whatsoever. Nobody was looking at you. Somebody took a quick look, but nobody was staring at you. They weren't looking at you, and you weren't looking at them. And as Steve put it, the one night we spent 1 whole hour in the swimming pool with 8 of our naked friends. So it was a very good experience. And when we left, I said, we've got to go back. And go back we did. When we went home and then came back to North Carolina, that was the first place we wanted to stop. We stopped, couldn't get out of our clothes quick enough, and get in the pool. And it was just like we had been there forever. And we talked to people. Steve talked to somebody who'd lived there 21 years. I talked to someone who'd been there 22 years. And this was just a happy place. No fronts, no anything, nobody. There were heavy people, black people, white people, green people, you name it. There were all kinds of people, and nobody cared. There were children there. They had living for families, and children were there. Steve's cutest experience this time was he looked over, and down the road was coming a dad, a little boy, a mom, and a little girl, all 4 naked, holding hands. He said that had to be a fun picture if you could take pictures, but none were allowed. So I just wanted to give you a few updates on things that were a little bit different and that you might not have known about me. And the big things for me was the fact that, I drove all that way following Steve, and I did okay. And I still have problems from the stroke, but I didn't. And got down here and just had a fantastic time. And I love it. We're in North Carolina. We are right on the river. We look right out the windows at the river. And it may not be the most scenic place where we're sitting, but it's kind of pretty much free. We're looking right on the water and all the beautiful sunsets. And so it's very, very enjoyable. And I love it. And I love the freedom of being in the 60-foot bus and knowing that there's just us in this bus. All of our precious things are here with us. And the most precious things are the 2 of us together. And it's just been great. And so hopefully that adds a little bit to this story, maybe. So see you next time at the white feather, or white tail. I keep calling it white feather. It's white tail place, because I'm going back there again. See y'all later.